This is the Agentic Advantage. I'm Bill Stevenson. I'm a strategic account executive with UiPath, and I'm joined by my colleague, Masaki.
Hi, I'm Masaki Kumamoto. I'm an AI solution architect at the UiPath incubation team.
In this very first episode of the Agentic Advantage, Masaki and I are going to define the term, and we're going to talk about how companies of all shapes and sizes can take advantage of this new technology.
That's right. And this first episode, we will define this new and very exciting technology.
So the first episode of the Agentic Advantage is really focused on defining what are AI agents, talking about how they're different from traditional robotic process automations, and then why Masaki and I believe they're such a game changer for companies of all shapes and sizes. So Masaki, let's get right into it. Tell us, what is AI agents or agentic automation?
Yeah, sure. So before I explain that, maybe I should recap what's robotic process automation, the traditional automation way, and then I will explain the new way.
Perfect.
So in enterprise field, past, I would say 5 years, a lot of companies started to use technology called RPA, which stands for robotic process automations. The technology allow you to repeat the very transactional and repetitive work in automated way. You can so with the technology will allow you to record the transactional process, like expense reports or invoice processing, and kick the automation when it's necessary. And it's been very successful in many companies. They made a lot of return of investment, not only in the finance field, but the HR, legal, and across all the industry.
That's right.
So that's robotic process automation. We've seen a lot of customers, right?
Yeah, I think it's fair. It's fair to say that one way to think about robotic process automation is deterministic, right? It's rules based. It follows a certain path or a certain rule set. I mean, you and I have been in so many meetings together with executives and many departments talking about robotic process automation and how you can take steps that are currently done by a person that are generally monotonous or repetitive, consistent. You're interacting with the screen, right? Those are all kind of characteristics of robotic process automation, which, as you indicated, has a fantastic ROI and it is not going anywhere and is really the bedrock of kind of what agentic automation is built upon. But maybe let's pivot over now to agentic automation or AI agents and maybe talk about what that is and then maybe juxtapose it with RPA.
Yeah, sure. So about 2 years ago, as everybody knows, this generative AI wave came, and we started to think, okay, we've been doing this robotic process automation. Generative AI is clearly a new opportunity for us to figure out what we can do with it. So we've been putting a lot of investment around the solution, how we can leverage this new technology in the enterprise automation context.
Right.
So long story short, we are going to have a new solution called Agent Builder, and that will allow you to have this new concept, agent. So we have the robot for robotic process automation, and the new solution is going to have agents. What's the difference?
Yeah, so that's exactly where I was going to go, Masaki. The difference in this LLM powered agent or robot versus say a deterministic robot, whether it's attended or unattended or some other variation.
So agent, as you mentioned, uses large language model, and it's really good for ambiguous dynamic business situation, unlike a robot. So within robotic process automation, there are still a lot of human involvement needed to happen because even in a transactional deterministic process, sometimes it requires a bit of ambiguous decision making because it requires semantic understanding of some data. Semantic means interpretation of text, which not necessarily robots were good at it, because in the end, the robots are deterministic. And we started to realize, okay, if we use this generative AI, large language model powered agent concept within the deterministic workflow, we can do so much more things.
Yeah.
For example, robotic process automation couldn't really understand the meaning of contract because it's a very unstructured data.
Right.
And to understand the meaning of it, it needed a new solution. And now because agent can do it, and the UiPath agent can basically understand the meaning of the contract and make the action based on the interpretation of contract or any kind of unstructured data, and actually kick the automation and gain some information back and provide the outcome towards the later part of the automation, which expands a lot of use cases.
Yeah, so these agents, they have planning capability, thinking capability, they learn on the job, right? So not a lot unlike regular employees. In fact, it was Jensen Huang from NVIDIA who said at CES just a few weeks ago that he believes that the IT department is going to become the new HR department, right? Where business units will go to IT and say, hey, I need 2 or 3 more digital employees. I mean, this is rather mind-blowing and revolutionary.
You're absolutely right. And we hear a lot of excitement in the market, not necessarily on the UiPath context, but in general, AI agent is a buzzword, I would say, and a lot of enterprise companies are exploring their opportunity. What I hear a lot from the customer is while they are exploring new solution with using AI agent concept, we hear a lot of cool POC and demonstration, but making an actual production outcome is really hard with agent because of the nature of AI agent, because it can do such a lot of cool thing.
That's right.
It's really hard to put the guardrail, governance, auditing capability around it, because you don't want really agent to go around all the enterprise applications and insert data, manipulate data, because in the end, what you want to have control around that.
That's right.
So that's the challenge we heard a lot, and in that aspect, robotic process automation happened to be really good component to have as a framework. So the pattern we found, the best practice I would say in AI agent automation is actually use the AI agent in a small part of the automation process,
right.
Because in the end, a lot of business transactions are hugely involved in the deterministic way. You want to put the transaction in the deterministic way overall, and there are certain parts that require semantic understanding or more dynamic decision making. But in the end, the agent will work in such a small space, and you can put their small scope of it. So as an overall transactional business process, it's going to be more robust and the reliable solution. And we've heard a lot of great feedback from customers.
Yeah, you hit on a lot of good points there, Masaki. Let's unpack just a few of them. I think what you're talking about is this world where you have the deterministic robot, right? Think of it as maybe traditional RPA. You have the non-deterministic AI agent, right? Who, as you defined, has its swim lanes. You also have a human in the loop, right? Because at some points, those robots get confused. They need guidance. They need help. They need instruction, right? So you got that human in the loop. And then all around that, you have these guardrails in place to make sure that your data is safe, you're compliant, right? That the robots are following correct policy and procedure, right? So, and I think that's a unique spot that UiPath inhabits, especially with such a large customer base. And I know you're talking to customers and I'm talking to customers, but Is that resonating with customers? Because there is so much noise right now and so much froth, if you will, about AI agents that I think a lot of decision makers in IT and in the business are getting confused.
Right. Yeah, you are spot on. The word agents are used in many contexts, and depending on which vendor you're talking with, which people you're talking with, the definition of agent are slightly different. For example, for many cases, agent refers to more like a chatbot style solutions. We all, of course, also have chatbot shaped solution for the autopilot for everyone. You can chat with the robot, but in some contexts, agent doesn't necessarily mean chatbot. For example, the agent we were talking about today is more unattended context.
Right.
And so it's really important when you have a conversation about AI solution or agent, what exactly we should talk about. And in the end, the agents are just a solution. When we take a look at the business problem, we should also think from the aspect of, okay, what's the actual business challenge? Does that make sense to have a chatbot for this? Does that make sense to run back-end automation for this? And then finally, we can talk about, okay, what kind of solution we should use. Maybe agent is not necessary, right?
That's a great point. In fact, I know that you've seen this because you and I have talked about this last year, 2024. It felt like AI as a solution, I'm not talking about AI agents, I'm talking about just pure play AI, was somewhat of a hammer looking for a nail. Like people had this new tool and they wanted to go figure out what they could do with it, right? As opposed to turning that on its head and saying what you just said, which is, what's the business problem? What's the value I get from solving this business problem? And then what's the right tool for the job? And I think in all the excitement around AI in 2024, I think some of that was lost. And this is probably a normal process when you have such an innovative and exciting technology. How do you think this plays out with agentic and AI agents as we're now in 2025 and beyond? How do you think companies start to figure out the right way to solve business problems with this exciting technology?
Right. So this is part of it, my personal opinion, but this year is going to be really the year of POC and really understand the value of agents. And we are already engaging with a lot of customers to use agents. We are seeing a very promising result already. But the scope is going to be really narrow first. And that's the best way to approach anyway in terms of agent. And that's this year. But going forward in the future, I don't think anybody can predict what's going to happen next few years because things are changing so fast. But a lot of people, including me, think that eventually we will have this concept of really digital employee. So this new entity is going to work independently, not even outside of the transactional process scope. So you can talk with this new digital employee in natural language, and that agent is not necessarily in charge of in the specific scope of work, specific scope of transactional work, but it act as a role like human, like I'm a solution architect. You can talk to the agent or this new digital employee as if he's or she is your colleague.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So that's that kind of concept is evolving as a lot of companies are looking for that kind of solution. So definitely what the CEO of NVIDIA mentioned, IT team is going to be new HR. I think that word is definitely coming. And to the point, for this year, it's really important to actually start something to get ready for that error, because whatever the solution you make before we will have this digital employee concept, whatever we make this year is going to be a great asset for those new digital employee, because in the end, again, for certain transaction, you still want somewhat deterministic and the dynamic mixed solution.
100%. Yeah, 100%. On that topic about the IT becoming the new HR, I was talking to an IT executive today from one of my customers, and I asked him about that idea that Jensen mentioned at CES, and he thought, yeah, that probably will come to fruition. He had a slightly different take on it, though. He said he thinks that even the process of requesting a new digital employee is going to be automated, right? So it's almost like you submit a ticket like you would for a new laptop or access to some system, but instead you're asking for a digital employee to do what you described earlier, is to work in a specific swim lane, right? And you may have 2 or 3 agents kind of working together, right? But his point of view was, when we get to steady state, whenever that is, this whole process of even requesting a digital employee, putting them to work, using natural language like you just described, is probably all in and of itself automated.
Right. Yeah. That could absolutely happen. But I would also say that some of the part definitely still requires human intervention, or at least audit for the audit purpose, because at least current society is run by human, and any errors or any critical decision is done by people, because in the end, current law or current world accept only the human accountability and the responsibility.
Right. That's right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Like let's say you build some kind of AI solutions, and let's say it makes mistake, which could happen if you don't have certain guardrail.
That's
like
right.
Absolutely, like if you don't have any guardrail, it will make some critical mistake at some point, for sure.
That's right.
Almost for sure. Current society is not ready for such concept yet,
right?
Because somebody has to take a responsibility and the accountability. In that context, I think it's still important for us to understand the importance of having some deterministic flow,
right,
and the governance and the auditability in the whole process.
I think what I'm hearing from my customers, and I'm sure you're hearing something similar, is they're going to lean on what they know is tried and true and is auditable and governable and has a human in the loop already, right? Which is largely what UiPath does today with a deterministic, robot, right? They're going to add on to that this AI agent, which leverages all of those things, which are critically important for the organization, and for all the reasons you just mentioned, right? You'll have the deterministic robot to leverage. You'll have the tools. You'll have system access, right? You'll have governance. You'll have insights. You'll have auditability, and you'll have human in the loop. All of that infrastructure is there. The AI agent really becomes, turbocharging that whole infrastructure that you've built to automate processes that are deterministic. Now you move over to processes that are non-deterministic, and you use technology to automate a bunch more work. And then the humans get to work on all the way more value add stuff for the organization,
right.
The innovative stuff, the new product development, the new campaigns, the new market positioning, that like all the stuff that, us humans are so good at and add so much value to. That I think this whole new world is so exciting for those reasons.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. When I know you talk with a lot of executives in utility field, especially now. What are they saying about this new AI solutions, and what are they saying?
It's a good question. I'd say first of all 2 things. There's only a handful of organizations that are mobilizing around this right now in the energy and utility space. You know, at the top level, they've already wrapped their heads around it and are putting strategies and tactics and people into place to leverage it, to take advantage of it. There's only a handful of those. Most are still are innovating, but they're looking at point solutions or point applications that solve a specific business problem. So, you know, in most organizations, you have change agents, right? People that have power, influence, budget, and they want to do something innovative, and they see the vision, and so they're going to do like a proof of concept or a pilot to prove it out, and then they're going to basically sell it up to their organization and their leadership. That's really the two things I see happening right now. I think what you described earlier is so spot on that it's a really smart approach to think about a business problem you could solve with agentic AI, right? And then build for it and figure it out, get key learnings. You're going to make some mistakes, make sure you have those guardrails in place, and then use that as somewhat of a jumping off point to go to bigger and better things. I think that's how most companies that I talk to are really thinking about it right now.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It kind of reminds me of the early days of robotic process automation. I joined the UiPath like 6 years ago. Everybody was figuring out, everybody understood the technology. It can do the repetitive thing. It can click and input data like magic through UI. And a lot of customers were like, okay, I get the technology. What kind of solution can we make? It was it was a journey for many customers. And 5 years later, it became a norm. Everybody's using robotic process automation for their critical work, transactional work. They can't do work anymore without the robotic process automation. And I think the similar thing is going to happen with agentic automation field.
I think you're spot on, and it's probably a good place to end. You know, I think in this world we're moving into, you're going to have the deterministic robotic process automation because many processes are deterministic. But we're going to move into this world where we can now solve non-deterministic processes with AI agents, which is going to be super exciting. But wrapped around that, like we talked about earlier, is the human in the loop and the guardrails and the governance and the insights and all that stuff that companies are going to want to make sure they protect themselves as they deploy this new technology. So Masaki, thanks for joining me here. This is a really exciting journey we're on. I hope people come back and hear what's coming next. I think next time, why don't we dig into use cases that we're seeing in the marketplace right now, and we'll give our viewers an opportunity to hear what other companies are thinking about as they go to leverage AI agents. And for you watching, please interact with this video, leave a comment, tell us what you think, give us your feedback. We'd love to hear questions or other perspectives so Masaki and I can weave those into our next episode. But until then, it's Bill and Masaki with the Agentic Advantage.